Welcome back to the channel. Today's discussion is quoted from an article published by the Guyana Chronicle. We're diving into a crucial piece of legislation that recently passed in Guyana's National Assembly, the Criminal Law Miscellaneous Bill 2025. This bill has significant implications for public safety and law enforcement, and it's essential for you to understand its details. Here's what you need to know about this new law. Primary objective. The bill's main goal is deterrence by increasing penalties for individuals who commit offenses while concealing their identity with a mask or disguise. It aims to enhance public safety and support law enforcement efforts. Stricter penalties. If someone commits a crime while masked or disguised, they will face stricter penalties. For instance, the penalty for unlawfully assaulting a person while masked has dramatically increased. Previously, it ranged from $7,500 to $15,000 or 18 months of imprisonment. Now, it can be $50,000 to $750,000 or up to 3 years of imprisonment. Crimes covered. The bill applies to a wide range of offenses, including crimes against public order such as riots, unlawful assembly, and acts of terrorism. It also extends to specific crimes like larceny, housebreaking, burglary, robbery, and assaulting any person while wearing a mask. Key clarification. It's crucial to note that this bill does not outlaw wearing masks or facial disguises in general. As Minister of Home Affairs Robeson Ben and Attorney General Anil Nanlal clarified, the law applies only when a mask, facial disguise, or facial apparel is used in the commission of a crime or if there is an intent to commit a crime. So, simply wearing a ski mask, hoodie, or scarf is not a crime unless it's for criminal intent. Unanimous support. The bill received unanimous support in the National Assembly, with both the government and opposition acknowledging its importance as an aggravating element in offenses. Global precedent. Guyana is not alone in this measure. Similar laws are already in place in other jurisdictions, including Canada and certain states in the United States, as well as in regional neighbors. This bill sends a clear message that anonymity is not a shield for committing a crime. We've broken down all the details in this video to help you grasp the full scope of this important legislation. Don't forget to hit that like button if you find this information helpful, and more importantly, subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on future updates and in-depth discussions on critical topics like this. The podcast begins now.
Okay, so let's dive right in. Imagine this scenario with me for a second. Someone's committing a crime, right? But their face is completely hidden. Maybe it's, a ski mask or a scarf pulled way up, maybe even just a hoodie pulled really tight. They're basically using that anonymity like a shield. Mm-hmm. What does that ability to hide who they are actually let them do? It feels like a core tactic for trying to get away with something, doesn't it? Well, our deep dive today is actually looking into a specific legislative response to exactly that situation. We're digging into a new law passed in Guyana, and we're basing this entirely on an article from the Guyana Chronicle dated June 3rd, 2025. So our mission here is pretty straightforward. We want to unpack what this one source tells us about this new bill. Why was it brought in? What does it actually change? And what did different people say about it when it was passed? We're aiming to get to the core of this specific info from that article, quick and clear for you.
Yeah, and what's really interesting looking just at this source is how you can see a piece of legislation being crafted to directly counter, a specific criminal tactic. The article zeroes in on the Criminal Law Miscellaneous Bill 2025. It was recently passed, and the article makes a point of noting it got unanimous support in the National Assembly. It mentions the specific sitting, too, the 105th sitting of the 12th Parliament. Unanimous support. That's pretty significant.
Unanimous. Yeah, that definitely jumps out. So, okay, at its heart, what is this bill actually doing? The article seems really clear that it's targeting people using disguises during crimes.
Exactly. That's the core purpose described in the source. It's introducing stricter penalties for individuals who commit offenses while they're masked or disguised in some way. It adds a specific legal consequence for hiding your face while you're, breaking the law.
Okay. But the article also makes a point of clarifying what the bill is not doing. That seems like a really important distinction they wanted to make.
Oh, absolutely critical. And the Attorney General apparently emphasized this, which the article repeats multiple times. This bill does not make wearing a mask or a disguise illegal, just generally. You can still wear one for whatever reason. The law only kicks in when that mask or, any other facial disguise or even just facial apparel is used in the commission of a crime. The whole distinction rests on the purpose and the timing of wearing that disguise.
Right. So it's the act of using the disguise while committing the crime that triggers this specific law. It sounds like it adds like an extra layer on top of the original offense. One of the opposition MPs, the article says, described it as adding an aggravating element.
That's a perfect way to put it. It essentially makes the existing crime more serious in the eyes of the law if a disguise was part of it. And the article gives us a really concrete example, pulled from the explanatory memorandum that the Attorney General cited. It shows the impact on penalties. Just look at the difference for unlawfully assaulting someone while masked or disguised.
And that difference is huge, right?
Yeah, it really is. The old penalty, according to the source, was a fine between $7,500 and $15,000, or maybe up to 18 months in prison. The new penalty, get this, a fine between $50,000 and $750,000, or up to 3 years in prison.
Whoa, hold on. Look at those numbers. From $15,000 max before, potentially to $750,000 now on the fine. That's a staggering increase. What does that jump tell us about how serious they are about stopping this tactic?
It tells us they see using a disguise not just as incidental, but as a really significant aggravating factor, something that deserves a much, much harsher response. They're explicitly pricing in that evasion factor that hiding your identity gives someone. And the bill applies this kind of thinking across a range of offenses, too. The article mentions it extends to offenses against public order, things like riots, unlawful assembly, even acts of terrorism. The Attorney General apparently noted a similarity there to how Canada handles this sort of thing.
And it's not just limited to public order stuff, is it?
No. The bill also specifically targets other crimes if they're committed while masked or disguised. The article lists larceny, housebreaking, burglary, and robbery. And yeah, like that dramatic penalty example showed, it also explicitly increases the punishment for assaulting any person while wearing a mask during the act.
Okay, so that covers what the law does and how it ramps up the penalties. But why now? What specific problem is this bill trying to solve, according to what the Attorney General said in the article?
Well, the article lays out the primary objectives given for the bill. They are deterrence, enhancing public safety, and also aiding law enforcement.
Deterrence feels like the big one there. How does the source explain this law is supposed to achieve that?
The core idea, as it's presented in the article, is pretty simple. If people know that hiding their face while committing a crime will mean extra charges and way higher penalties, like that massive jump we just talked about, then hopefully they'll be less likely to use that tactic. Simple as that. The Attorney General had a quote that really drives this home. The article includes it. He said quite pointedly that anonymity is not a shield for committing a crime.
Anonymity is not a shield. Yeah, that phrase really sums up the whole intent, doesn't it? The article also gave a bit of international context for this kind of law too, right?
It did, yeah. The Attorney General mentioned that other places he named Canada, certain U.S. states, and also some regional neighbors already have similar laws. So it indicates this isn't, a totally brand new idea globally, but it's a specific response being put into action now in Guyana.
Did everyone in the assembly see eye to eye on this? Or were there maybe other viewpoints or concerns brought up during the discussion based on the article?
There were a couple of things mentioned. While the opposition MP supported the bill, seeing it as that aggravating element we discussed, they did raise a point about private security firms. Apparently, sometimes their officers wear masks, and the MP suggested maybe that practice should stop.
That's an interesting practical question. How did the government respond to that, specifically the Minister of Home Affairs?
Well, the minister addressed it head on. According to the source, he acknowledged there might be reasons, like maybe protection, for security staff to use masks sometimes. But he was really careful to bring it back to the bill's focus, which is specifically on the intent to commit a crime while masked. He gave examples like, ski masks, hoodies, balaclavas, scarves, things used to hide the face. And he reiterated that the law targets the use of these things when you are intending to commit a crime or involved in something like terrorism.
So it always comes back to that crucial distinction, the one the Attorney General made. And then the article says he repeated it one last time, just to be crystal clear. Wearing a mask is only criminal if it's used during the commission of an offense. It's not about the mask itself. It's about the criminal intent behind using it in that moment. Okay, let's pause for a sec and connect this deep dive focusing on this one specific law in Guyana back to you, the listener. Why is this relevant beyond just Guyana and this particular date? I mean, it's a single law, but it seems to touch on broader themes, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It shows us, kind of in real time, how legal systems try to respond when criminals adapt their tactics, hiding your identity to commit a crime.
Yeah.
That's ancient, right? But laws sometimes need updating to specifically add consequences for it.
Yeah.
Especially if it's seen as, making it harder for law enforcement or maybe increasing public fear.
And it really highlights that constant balancing act governments face. How do you boost public safety and help police without going too far and restricting perfectly normal individual actions, like just covering your face because it's cold or for some other non-criminal reason? This specific law in Guyana is their attempt, based on this source, to strike that balance for this particular challenge right now. The real aha moment from reading this article is seeing how the law is so laser focused. It's targeting the criminal use of anonymity, slapping significant new penalties on that, rather than trying to regulate masks broadly. So wrapping up this deep dive, based purely on that Guyana Chronicle article, we've seen how Guyana is tightening its laws, specifically significantly increasing penalties for using physical disguises during crimes, the clear aim to remove anonymity as a shield for illegal acts.
Yeah, and that kind of leaves us with a thought to maybe chew on. This bill tackles hiding your physical face. But, in today's world, anonymity and hiding your identity are just as important, maybe even more so, in the digital world. Think about cybercrime, online fraud, harassment where people hide behind fake profiles or VPNs or other tech tricks. How might laws need to adapt next to deal with anonymity when it's used for criminal purposes in those non-physical spaces? What's the next frontier for laws trying to stop criminals from hiding who they are online? Something to think about.